The reservation was supposed to be the easy part. A quiet first night in Monterey, California. Salt air through the windows, soft piano. The kind of evening that lets a family reset. Instead, the hostess glanced at the screen, frowned, and said there was no Bennett on the list. I felt the room tilt. At my side, Ava Bennett, 30. My younger sister, tall, camera-ready, a social media creator raised on applause, exhaled theatrically, and folded her arms over a linen jumpsuit that looked born for sunsets. Classic, she said, voice cool but sharp. Across from us, Helen Bennett, late 50s. Our mother, a former school counselor who dresses in tasteful cardigans and carries fairness like a mantra, pressed her lips into a thin line that never bodes well for me. Richard Bennett, early 60s, our father, a civil engineer with kind eyes and a habit of choosing peace over truth, chinos and boat shoes, checked his watch as if schedules might rescue us. And me. Clara Bennett, 32. Interior designer, quieter, built from lists and late nights, stood with a printed confirmation in my phone and a knot in my stomach. We were rerouted to a noisy bistro off Cannery Row, all clatter and neon. Fries instead of oysters. Fluorescence instead of candlelight. The server dropped waters. The ice chimed. The silence at our table was louder than the room. Ava leaned forward, ponytail slick and perfect. If you double-checked, we wouldn't be here, Clara. She didn't raise her voice. She never has to. Her talent is precision, a dancer's strike that lands without sweat. Helen sighed the sigh that means she wants a solution, not a fight. Let's not ruin the night, she said, glancing at me, not at Ava, like I held the ruin in my hands. Richard buttered bread he didn't want. We'll sort it out tomorrow, he murmured, the Switzerland of dads. I tasted nothing. Shrimp scampi arrived, gleaming and wrong. I kept hearing the hostess. No reservation under Bennett. I'd booked it. I knew I had. Still, doubt is a patient whisper. Phones lit the table. Ava scrolled like a metronome. A notification pulsed on my screen. Sam Carter, 35, my colleague from the studio. A pragmatic creative with a steady baritone, broad-shouldered, California casual in jeans, and a paint-flecked work tee when he's on site. Oakland-born, union dad, library card mom. You at the coast. Remember to breathe. He'd texted earlier when I mentioned the trip. Now, another ping. How's night one? I typed, erased, typed. Reservation got lost. 3 dots appeared, then. That's not on you unless it's on you. Don't carry ghosts that aren't yours. My chest loosened, just a breath, a small one, but enough to remember that my hands weren't shaking before Ava spoke. You always do this, Ava said, aiming the words so they skipped across the table and cut where they landed. You plan it your way, and the rest of us pick up pieces. Helen touched her napkin to the spotless corner of her mouth. Ava, gentle. Then to me, warmer but waited. Clara, did you confirm? Maybe they sent an update. The old choreography. The old spotlight. I nodded, kept my voice even. I confirmed. Ava's smile didn't reach her eyes. And yet, here we are. The server returned to ask about dessert. No one was hungry. Outside, the marine layer rolled in, soft and cold, fogging the glass, smudging the lights until everything looked almost kind. Richard paid, grateful for a task he could complete. Helen thanked the staff with a practiced grace. Ava adjusted her jumpsuit, ready for a story she'd tell her followers about resilience and bad service. My phone buzzed again. Sam, you don't have to win tonight. Just don't disappear. The words settled like a hand on my shoulder. On the walk back to the resort, boardwalk creaking, gulls calling, the Pacific breathing in long, patient pulls, I stayed a half step behind, where it's easier to be useful and harder to be seen. Ava narrated tomorrow's plans out loud. Helen agreed. Richard nodded. I counted my steps and the lamps and the times I'd swallowed a sentence before it formed. In the elevator, our reflection stacked in brushed steel, 4 versions of almost a family portrait in motion. My phone screen lit once more. Text me if you need a witness, Sam wrote, a joke with a spine. I nearly smiled. In our adjoining rooms, doors clicked shut. I stood at the balcony a long time, the sea writing and erasing on black water, the night tasting like salt, and second chances I couldn't name yet. I told myself, breathe, and do not vanish. Then I put the phone face down, turned off the lamp, and let the waves count me to sleep. Morning poured through the resort's balcony like liquid gold. I woke to the faint hum of seagulls and the rhythmic crash of waves beyond the dunes. For a few quiet seconds, Monterey looked like the promise I'd imagined. Sunlight on driftwood, linen curtains swaying, a day clean of judgment. Then Ava's knock shattered it. "Clara, boat leaves in 20. Don't make us late again." She stood in the doorway, already camera ready. Beach hat, mirrored sunglasses, a white crochet cover-up over her swimsuit. All effortless aesthetic, the kind that turns heads and collects likes. "I didn't make us late yesterday," I said, but she was already halfway down the hall. At breakfast, Helen stirred her coffee with the slow grace of someone staging calm. "Let's have a better day, The ocean's perfect for snorkeling." She said it to both of us, but looked only at me. Richard folded the paper beside his omelet. "Forecast says mild wind, will be fine." He meant it as reassurance, but Ava's lips curved into a knowing smirk. We reached the marina around 10. Tourists in bright vests and sandals crowded near the dock, chatter bubbling like soda. The guide, Luis, a sun-browned man in his 40s with a salt and pepper beard and the kind of patience that comes from decades on the sea, approached us with an apologetic shrug. "Sorry folks, engine trouble, boat's delayed, maybe canceled if the part doesn't come." The words hit Ava like thunder. "You're kidding." Her tone sliced through the morning air. Luis offered a sympathetic smile. "Wish I was, ma'am. We'll refund or reschedule." Helen sighed, disappointed but polite. "It happens." Then Ava turned, eyes locking on me like a target. "This is exactly what I warned about. You picked the wrong day, the wrong company, and now—" "Enough," I whispered, but she talked over me. "Why can't anything go smoothly when you're in charge?" Luis blinked, caught in the family crossfire. "Miss, nobody's fault." "It's fine." I cut in quickly, forcing a smile. "We'll come back tomorrow." Helen rubbed her temples. "Girls, please, let's not make a scene." Her plea, soft and familiar, only made the shame heavier. The crowd dispersed. Ava scrolled furiously on her phone, probably drafting a post about unlucky mornings. Richard offered to walk the pier. Helen followed. I stayed behind, pretending to check my messages. My phone buzzed. Sam again. "How's the ocean?" I typed. "Stormy, metaphorically." He sent back a laughing emoji. Then, "Remember, you can't control the weather or people who think they do." I almost laughed, the kind that catches in your throat. I sat on a bench facing the water, the wind tugging at my hair, the sea restless and gray. Childhood memories surfaced. Ava stealing my paints, me taking the blame for stains on the carpet. Mom saying, "You're older, Clara. Set an example." The same script, just a different set. Later, back at the resort, the family retreated to the pool. I excused myself and walked along the sand instead. A group of kids built a crooked castle. Gulls hovered overhead, shrieking for crumbs. For a moment, I imagined what it would feel like to build something fragile and not have anyone kick it over. My phone chimed again. Sam sent a picture. Blueprints scattered across a work table, sunlight spilling across them. Projects moving. "You'd be perfect for the coastal interiors. Think about it when you're back." I stared at the image, at the clean lines, the future in progress. Maybe it was time to start designing my own boundaries instead of rooms. Behind me, Ava's laughter drifted from the pool deck. Sharp, practiced, camera-friendly. I turned toward the horizon where the sea met sky, whispering promises it never kept. Tomorrow would come, and I would be ready. I didn't know how yet, but something inside me had started to shift. Quiet, but certain, like the tide pulling back before it rises again. Evening slipped over Monterey in a wash of amber light, soft against the surf. I'd spent most of the afternoon pretending things were fine, smiling through lunch, nodding at jokes I didn't hear. But under the calm, a pulse of resentment throbbed steady and sharp. Dinner was at Blue Tide, a candlelit seafood spot perched above the cliffs, all glass and glow. The kind of place meant for memories, not meltdowns. When I entered the lobby, Ava was already there. Sleek ponytail, silk dress that shimmered like the bay, heels that clicked like punctuation marks. Helen had chosen navy chiffon, her version of evening diplomacy. Richard wore his usual collared calm. I wore beige linen and restraint. "You confirmed this one, right?" Ava quipped, lips curving as she adjusted her bracelet. Her voice was honey over glass. "Yes," I said quietly. "Twice." The hostess led us to a window table. The sky blushed into twilight. For a fleeting second, peace teased the edge of possibility. Then the waiter asked about drinks, and Ava pounced. She'll need something strong, she said, nodding toward me. You know, after her record with planning. Helen's polite laugh came too quickly, the reflex of someone afraid of silence. Richard sighed, murmuring, Ava. But his tone was paper-thin, easily torn. I tried to focus on the menu, words blurring in the low light. My throat tightened. For years, I'd believed that staying quiet made me the bigger person, that calm was strength. But silence can rot you from the inside out. I looked up just as Ava leaned forward, elbows on the table, nails gleaming. I mean, first dinner, then the snorkeling. Maybe next time, just let me handle it. She said it like a kindness. A performance for our parents' approval. The sound of cutlery stopped. Even the sea outside seemed to hold its breath. I met her eyes steady. You're right, I said. Maybe next time you should handle it. Ava blinked, startled by agreement. Because you're so good at canceling things without telling anyone. Her smile faltered, a hairline crack. Helen's fork froze midair. Clara, she warned, soft but edged. What are you talking about? Richard asked, voice low. Nothing, Ava said quickly, waving a hand. She's twisting things again. I reached for my phone, heart thudding like a drum under glass. 2 weeks ago, I said, unlocking the screen. You texted me. The table lights reflected off the glass, flickering over their faces. You said you'd accidentally canceled the dinner reservation and messed up the snorkeling times. I scrolled, the proof glowing in my palm. I fixed what I could. You just forgot that part. Ava's voice sharpened. You're overreacting. It was a joke. No, I said. It wasn't. I slid the phone across the table. You made me the villain because that's easier than admitting you made a mistake. For the first time in years, Helen looked unsure. Richard reached for the phone, scanning the screen, his brow darkening. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, heavy, changing shape. Ava tried to laugh it off, but her eyes darted, searching for an ally that wasn't there. Clara, Helen began carefully, maybe this isn't the place. It's exactly the place, I said, the words trembling but true. It's the only time anyone actually listens. The waiter arrived with bread, stopped, sensed the fracture, and retreated like a tide. No one spoke for long minutes. Then Richard said quietly, We'll talk later. His voice wasn't tired. It was firm. Ava looked away, jaw tight. After dinner, I walked alone along the cliff path behind the restaurant. The ocean stretched endless and dark, the wind threading through my hair like forgiveness I didn't yet believe in. My phone buzzed. Sam. You okay? I typed. Not sure, but I said something. 3 dots blinked. Then, good. You finally did. The moon rose, pale and patient. Below, waves broke against rock, relentless, but clean. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the sound. The next evening carried that strange calm that always comes after a storm. Too still, too quiet, as if the world itself were waiting for what comes next. The Bennetts had agreed to start fresh, but the air at dinner felt like glass. Polished, fragile, one wrong word from shattering. We gathered again at the resort's main restaurant, Coral Bay Grill. Candles flickered inside crystal holders. Silverware gleamed. Conversation from other tables hummed like background static. Ava, 30, graceful as ever, in a floral maxi dress that moved when she did, arrived last, her entrance timed to turn heads. Helen, our mother, had chosen pale lavender, soft and diplomatic, while Richard hid behind his wine list, hoping peace could be poured by the bottle. I, Clara, had promised myself I'd stay composed. No more tears, no more shrinking. For a while, it almost worked. The waiter brought clam chowder, the kind thick enough to stand a spoon upright. Helen commented on the flavor, Richard mumbled approval, and Ava, always center stage, launched into a story about a brand deal she'd just landed. They're flying me to Miami next month, she said, voice lilting, for this coastal campaign. You know, it's nice when people trust you with responsibility. The last word lingered, pointed like a knife turned sideways. I felt the blood rush to my ears. My spoon hovered midair. Good for you, I said evenly, but my heart beat like a warning drum. Ava smiled, not kindly, and tilted her glass. Let's hope nothing gets canceled this time. That was it. The line, the spark. The glass in my hand trembled. Enough, I said quietly. Helen blinked. Clara? No. I continued, voice firmer, louder than I meant. I'm done being your punchline, Ava. The laughter at nearby tables dimmed. My father's fork paused halfway to his mouth. You've been blaming me all week for things that weren't even my fault. You lied about those reservations. I have. The proof, remember? Ava's smile faltered. Clara, not here. Why not here? I shot back. You humiliate me here. You make sure everyone sees how perfect you are, how clumsy I am. Well, let's even it out. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and laid it flat on the table. The glow of the screen lit our faces like a spotlight. Here it is, I said, opening the message thread. Your texts. You canceled the dinner, the snorkeling, everything. You asked me to fix it, then blamed me when I couldn't. Helen's face drained of color. Richard leaned closer, reading, his brow furrowed deep, the lines of a man finally seeing something long ignored. Ava reached across, snatched for the phone. You're twisting this, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. They're out of context. Out of context, I echoed. You wrote, I think I canceled it by mistake. How's that out of context? For a long, tense moment, only the faint murmur of waves beyond the windows filled the room. Then Richard set the phone down, exhaling. Ava, he said, his tone different now, low, controlled. Is it true? Ava's eyes darted from him to me to Helen. I might have. I didn't mean to. No, I interrupted softly. You never mean to. You just do it anyway. Helen pressed her napkin to her mouth, her voice trembling. Girls, please, not in front of... It's fine, Mom, I said, standing. You can relax. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I just needed anyone, to finally hear me. The waiter approached, hesitant, offering dessert menus. None of us looked up. Ava's gaze dropped to the tablecloth, her confidence unraveling thread by thread. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. Richard cleared his throat, slow, deliberate. Enough for tonight, he said. But it wasn't dismissal. It was acknowledgement. The kind a father gives when he realizes the story he believed isn't true anymore. Outside, the night air hit cool and sharp. I stepped out onto the deck, overlooking the dark ocean, my hands trembling. Not from fear this time, but from release. My phone buzzed. Sam again. Did you tell them? I typed back. Yes. How'd it feel? I stared out at the restless sea. Like breathing for the first time, I whispered and hit send. The next morning arrived heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid. The sunlight poured through the balcony glass like an accusation and a beginning all at once. Breakfast at the resort cafe was unusually quiet, not the comfortable kind, but the kind that hums with new truths trying to find their place. Helen Bennett, our mother, sat with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold. She wore soft peach linen today, her hair pinned back with the same silver clip she'd had since I was a kid. Her eyes were tired, but there was something softer in them too, like she was seeing me through a new lens and wasn't sure yet what to do with the view. Richard, my father, read the paper but didn't turn a page for 10 straight minutes. He wasn't hiding this time, more like waiting. And Ava, 30 influencer smile dimmed, sat across from me in oversized sunglasses, stirring her smoothie as if it might give her the right words. I focused on the ocean through the window, endless, calm, alive. The sound of dishes, the clink of silverware, the murmur of other families laughing nearby. Normal noises, all of them. But for us, everything had changed. Finally, Helen spoke first. Clara, she began softly, setting the cup down. About last night. Her voice trembled, a rare crack in her composure. I think your father and I owe you an apology. Ava shifted in her chair. Richard cleared his throat. We've let things slide too long, he said, eyes on me. I thought keeping peace meant staying quiet. Turns out I was just keeping the wrong person quiet. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. For years, I'd dreamed of hearing those words. An acknowledgement, a simple "you were right." Now that they'd come, they didn't erase the hurt, but they loosened something tight in my chest. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. Helen reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. We should have protected you more, she whispered. I see that now. For a moment, the silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing. Then Ava took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed, mascara smudged. She looked younger without her armor. I messed up, she said, voice small, brittle. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that. I panicked. I'm used to people expecting me to be perfect, and when I'm not, I cover it up. I guess you became my cover." The words hit harder than I expected, not because they hurt, but because they were honest. I'd never heard my sister admit fear before. "I don't need you to be perfect, Ava," I said gently. "I just need you to stop using me as your reflection." She blinked, absorbing it. "I can try." "Good," I said, "because I'm done pretending everything's fine when it isn't." Richard exhaled slowly, folding the paper and setting it aside. "Maybe that's exactly what this family needed," he murmured. A little truth. We finished breakfast quietly after that. No sharp words, no veiled jokes, just the clatter of plates and the low hum of something new. Respect. Later that afternoon, we walked along the beach together, wind whipping through our hair, gulls diving in lazy arcs overhead. Helen slipped her arm through mine, her warmth familiar again. Ava trailed a few steps behind, taking photos, but for once not performing for anyone. She captured the sea, the sky, the footprints we left side by side. As the sun dipped low, Sam Carter appeared at the edge of the boardwalk. Jeans, white t-shirt, hands in his pockets, the calm presence I hadn't realized I missed. "Thought I'd surprise you," he said, smile easy, eyes kind. "Client meeting nearby." "Perfect timing," I said, meaning it. He joined our walk, greeting my parents politely, and somehow the moment felt complete. Not the tidy kind of ending, but the real kind, the one stitched with salt air and second chances. The tide crept closer, erasing our footprints as we moved. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased with them. The truth was out, the air was clear, and the silence that had ruled my life had finally, beautifully, broken. The last full day in Monterey began with a sky so clear it looked freshly washed. The ocean glittered under the late morning sun, gulls slicing through the blue like brush strokes. For the first time since we'd arrived, the Bennetts weren't walking on eggshells. We were just walking. Clara Bennett, 32, the girl who used to count every apology as currency, moved at her own pace now, sandals pressing soft shapes into the sand. Her mother, Helen, dressed in a light denim jacket and rolled khaki pants, carried a camera and stopped every few steps to photograph the water. Richard, in his favorite old baseball cap, whistled tunelessly as he skipped stones. And Ava, 30, traded her influencer perfection for something simpler. Hair loose, feet bare, no phone in hand. The sea breeze tangled everything. Our hair, our history. And still, it felt lighter. Helen glanced over at me, smiling. "You always loved the ocean," she said. "You used to tell me it sounded like forgiveness." I smiled back. Maybe I was onto something. We reached the pier where the failed snorkeling trip had started. The boats bobbed lazily now, fixed and shining. A fisherman called out greetings, his laughter carrying over the water. Richard leaned on the railing beside me. "You know," he said, "when you spoke up at dinner, I thought we were losing you." He turned, eyes soft behind the shade of his cap. "Now I realize we were finally hearing you." I nodded, the tide whispering below. "It wasn't easy," I admitted, "but staying quiet was worse." He patted my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, kiddo." Behind us, Ava joined in, holding a paper cup of lemonade. "You know," she said quietly, "I almost didn't come today. I figured everyone needed a break from me." She gave a self-deprecating laugh. But then I thought maybe I needed a break from being that version of me. She looked smaller somehow, still Ava, still beautiful, but no longer performing. I met her gaze and said, "Then start with this version. It's better." She smiled faintly. "You really forgive me." "I think," I said, watching the waves roll in and fade, "I'm learning that forgiveness isn't for the person who asks. It's for the one who's tired of carrying the weight." For a moment, we just stood there, three silhouettes against the bright water. Helen joined us, slipping her hand through mine. The four of us watched the horizon, the sea stretching wide and endless, like possibility. A voice behind me broke the spell. "Not to interrupt the family therapy," it teased, "but I promised someone a proper coffee." I turned. Sam Carter, 35, stood a few feet away, wind tugging at his shirt, smile crooked. He held out 2 cups from the cafe down the boardwalk. "Caramel latte, no syrup. That's still your order, right?" "How did you even—" I laughed, taking it from him. "You didn't tell me you were still in town." He shrugged, casual. Had a client meeting nearby. Maybe I didn't want to leave before checking that you survived the Bennetts." Richard chuckled. "She did more than survive," he said. "She led the rescue." Sam grinned, eyes meeting mine. "Sounds about right." The afternoon blurred into the kind of perfection you don't plan. Ava taking candid photos, Helen convincing a stranger to snap a group shot, Richard laughing at a seagull stealing his fries. When the sun began to sink, gold bleeding into rose, we walked the boardwalk one last time. Sam fell into step beside me. "So," he said, "you heading back to work Monday?" "Yeah, got that new project you mentioned." "Good," he said, bumping my shoulder gently. "Just remember what you told me last night." I frowned playfully. "And what's that?" "That you're done being quiet." The light shimmered off the waves, reflecting on his face, warm and sure. For once, I didn't doubt myself. Later, as twilight wrapped the shore, we all stood for one last picture. Ava between our parents, me beside Sam. The shutter clicked, freezing a version of us I'd almost stopped believing in. Imperfect, mending, real. When I looked at the image afterward, the wind caught my hair mid-laugh. It wasn't the composed Clara I'd always tried to be. It was the one finally breathing, the one who'd spoken and been heard. The tide rolled in and erased the footprints behind us. But this time, I didn't feel erased with them. I felt renewed, like the water itself had whispered, "You made it home." Autumn came quickly after Monterey. Crisp mornings, gold leaves skimming the sidewalks, and the quiet hum of a life shifting gears. Back in San Francisco, my apartment no longer felt like a retreat from the world. It felt like the headquarters of a woman finally building one. The echoes of the ocean were still in me, soft but steady, a reminder that peace wasn't silence. It was honesty. Clara Bennett, 32, walked into her design studio on Monday morning, carrying coffee and a new kind of confidence. She wore a tailored beige blazer over a white blouse, hair tied loosely, her voice firmer than it used to be. Sam Carter, 35, was already there, rolled up sleeves, pencil, behind his ear, sketching a coastal interior concept on tracing paper. "Look who's early," he teased without looking up. I didn't think I'd ever see the day. "New era," I said, setting down my cup. "Call it post-Monterey energy." He smiled, that quiet knowing kind. "Ah, the famous Bennett family summit. You survived?" "More than survived," I said, flipping through blueprints. "We might actually like each other again. It's weird." He leaned back in his chair. "Weird's good. Means progress." His voice softened. "Means you finally stopped apologizing for existing." That made me laugh. Even though it was true, work that week felt different. I said no when a client tried to add unpaid tasks, and yes when Sam suggested we pitch a design lead together. I corrected a contractor who interrupted me mid-sentence, and he actually listened. Every small win felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. That Friday, Helen called. "Your father's making chili," she said. "He wants to know if you're free for dinner." Her voice was light, almost shy. "And Ava's coming too." I hesitated for a moment, but then smiled. "Yeah, Mom, I'll be there." Dinner at my parents' house felt unfamiliar at first. The same dining table, the same framed photos, but a gentler rhythm. Ava Bennett, 30, had traded her influencer Polish for jeans and a soft gray sweater. She greeted me with a real hug. Not for show, not half-hearted. "Hey, stranger," she said. "I sent you that marketing contact you asked for." "You did?" I asked, surprised. "Figured I owed you some good karma." She grinned, awkward but sincere. Helen carried a tray of cornbread. Richard stirred the pot, and for the first time in a long time, nobody tiptoed. We ate, talked, even laughed, not because things were perfect, but because they didn't need to be. When Ava told a story about tripping during a live stream, we all howled, and she didn't flinch when I teased her back. That felt like healing, the kind that hides inside ordinary moments. After dinner, Richard pulled out an old photo album. "Remember this," he said, pointing to a picture of two little girls building a sandcastle, faces smeared with sunscreen, one holding a plastic shovel like a sword. "You knocked it down 5 minutes later," Ava said. I did not. I laughed, but I had. And suddenly, the memory didn't sting anymore. It felt warm. Later that night, back in my apartment, I stepped onto the balcony. The city lights shimmered below like scattered stars. My phone buzzed, a message from Sam. Client loved the proposal. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate? I smiled, typing back, only if we toast to progress. Deal. I looked out at the skyline, the fog rolling in slow from the bay, horns echoing faintly, the heartbeat of a city that never really sleeps. Somewhere in the distance, I could almost hear the Monterey waves again, that same rhythm, that same reminder. The woman who'd once whispered her way through life was gone. The new me didn't shout, but she spoke clearly, confidently, and with purpose. In the reflection of the window, I caught my own faint smile. Not the careful one I used to wear for peacekeeping, but the real one that said, "You did it." For the first time, I didn't need anyone else to validate that. Not Ava, not my parents, not even Sam. The ocean might have taught me forgiveness, but life was teaching me something better. The art of speaking up and the grace of knowing when to stay silent. And beneath it all, a quiet promise lingered like the last note of a song. I would never, ever lose my voice again.